It's just gone 9 o'clock Central African time. Welcome to your favorite weekly news analysis program, Media Monitor, right here on the SABC News' Channel 404. My name is Leanne Manus. I'm standing in for Sakina Kamwendo. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Jam-packed show we got for you. Let's take a look at what you can expect this hour. We delve into the ANC's special NEC meeting in East London and the expectations thereof. We look at the much publicised Patricia de Lille DA spat, DA Federal Executive meeting later today to discuss de Lille's fate. And lastly, we speak whether National Poet Laureate, writer and struggle stalwart, the late Keorapetse Kgositsile's contribution to the arts has been recognised. All right, well, let's start off the programme, however, with a look at the headlines, and we say a very good morning to Shante Yankees.
Thank you very much, Leanne. Good to see you in studio. Some of us were a bit confused this morning whether it was a Sunday or a Monday, but it's good to have you here. With that being said, let's have a look at your morning headlines. Well, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for a change of culture in the party during his maiden January 8 statement in East London. He says the ANC is marred by infighting and corruption. Of course, the EFF leader Julius Malema says the party's councillors will soon remove a DA mayor in one of the big metros in the country. He says this is to demonstrate that they are not friends with the Democratic Alliance. Malema addressed hundreds of party supporters in Westernburg, Polokwane yesterday. And coming up in your sporting headlines, Kaizer Chiefs collected their first 3 points of the year when they came from a goal behind to clinch the game 2-1. Goals from Ryan Moon and Dumisani Zuma ensured Kaizer Chiefs claimed 3 points when they beat Polokwane City 2-1 at FNB Stadium in the ABSA Premiership. The win sees Steve Kompele's side moving to the 4th spot with 26 points from 17 league matches. Of course, that's a wrap-up for now. All your sporting headlines and news coming up at 10, and Leanne with Media Monitor after the break.
Show me a greater power on the whole continent of Africa. Show me a greater power anyway.
6th of June 1918 was the establishment of our movement to maintain that.
We need to do something about the educational upliftment of the Afrikaner, and we also need to do something about the economic upliftment of the Afrikaner. And that was the two main goals at that stage in 1918.
The Brotherhood never was a cultural organization. It was a state-capturing organization. It is, in fact...
I like that term.
It has captured the financial systems. It has captured the parastatals. It has captured cultural organizations.
For all your constitutional and legal matters, tune into Rights and Recourse on Sundays between 2 and 3 Central African Time.
Phones, cloud systems and robots have taken over a lot of what used to be done manually.
Our accounting system is actually based on the cloud.
Google nowadays can tell you where you parked your car.
And Africa's entrepreneurs are using technology to create.
With Pocket Masipala, you can basically do all the services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join me, Spumelele Zondi, on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
We make sure to be where news is happening,
both locally and globally. For the latest business news, stay with us.
From South Africa to the world, we've got all your latest sporting news.
Don't miss our weather updates at every hour.
Stay tuned to News Today, Monday to Friday, from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News.
Welcome back to Media Monitor. On the show this morning, we're pleased to welcome SABC digital producer Tshepiso Moche. And thanks so much for being with us. Political analyst Professor Stephen Friedman and media analyst Shoni Makari. Gentlemen, welcome on the Sunday morning. I look forward to your analysis.
Thank you. Welcome.
All right, so let's start off with the Sunday newspapers. If you hadn't had a chance to have a look at them, this is your opportunity to catch a glimpse. So let's take a look firstly at the Sunday Times. It's leading with a story about ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa, that he will ramp up his bid to remove Jacob Zuma from the Union buildings and Sean Abrams as the NPA head. All right, let's get your take there, Stephen. What do you think? I mean, is that the Sunday Times, Cyril takes aim at Abrams?
Well, you know, I think there's a lot of wishful thinking around at the moment. He's got more possibilities of getting rid of Sean Abrams at the moment than getting rid of Jacob Zuma. It's more. His problem is that there's an appeal against the court judgment. Now, they seem to think that his advice is that he can go ahead despite the appeal. That's a matter for the lawyers. But Sean Abrams is a lot easier because he has a decision from the court saying that he can actually appoint a new national director of public prosecution. So if his legal advice says that he can, it is possible that he'll act on this this week. But I think that the speculation about Jacob Zuma leaving is a bit exaggerated. I think he will go at some point, but I don't think he's going to go in the next few days.
In the next few days, I know people were expecting it by the end of last week. Didn't happen, so let's see what happens now. Let's take a look at the City Press now. They are leading with a story about the ANC NEC in a fresh bid to oust Zuma. Surprise, surprise. The article further states that the president's loyalists and his foes are already talking of a post-Jay-Z cabinet, which may see many of his staunchest allies out in the cold. All right, Stephen, I know you were talking about that and saying that's not going to happen anytime soon. It may happen, but not too soon. Shoni, what do you think? I mean, give us your views on all of it.
Well, I think highly placed sources, obviously, within the ANC feeding information to journalists to try and, you know, fuel a particular agenda, hoping that it will actually materialize. But I don't think right now, I think Sil right now is more concerned about running his unity message while getting some cleanup job done.
Yeah.
You know, so there are a few quick wins that he can achieve, and I think he's trying to do that. For instance, the announcement of the commission into state capture. That's a first big win. And he didn't have to get rid of Jacob Zuma. He just needed him to toe the line, and I think he's going to continue to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've got the State of the Nation coming up next month, early next month. Do you foresee President Jacob Zuma giving that State of the Nation?
Probably, but there will be a lot of input from that won't be his own, I think.
Exactly. We'll have to read that article to further see who our new ministers are going to be, if in fact that cabinet reshuffle article is all true. Let's take a look at the Sunday Independent now. It's running with a story about a dispute between the EFF and a sacked employee dating back to January 2015. The dispute has culminated in the sheriff of the Johannesburg North Gauteng court, I imagine, seeking to effect an order to attach close to 500,000 rand from the party's bank account. There's an interesting lead story for you, Stephen. Have you had a chance to read that one yet?
Yes, I'm aware of the story. Look, Leanna, I think this is part of a bigger picture, and I think the bigger picture is that you're going to see a change in the relationship between the EFF and the media. The EFF has been the darling of the media over the last while or so because the EFF has been trying to get rid of Jacob Zuma, and the media is sympathetic to that. Now that Cyril Ramaphosa is in charge, I suspect things are going to be a lot more difficult for the EFF. So I think we're going to see a lot more negative publicity about the EFF, which we haven't been seeing for the last while or so. But of course, this is, this is not simply, this has to be reported. This is employees of the EFF who've taken the organisation to court, which of course they're legally entitled to do. And it's been found that the EFF did not treat them very well, which of course is very embarrassing for a party who always points fingers outwards. So,
yeah.
But I think this is a shape of things to come. I think that the EFF is going to find life a lot more difficult in the media space than it has in the last year.
Well, we'll pick up more on that one, especially when we talk about what's happening on social media, because social media was lit yesterday with stories of the EFF and H&M. I'm sure you saw it, but we'll go into detail about that in a few minutes. Right now, the next newspaper headline to look at is the Sunday Tribune. Now, this leads with the police investigation linking drug debt and prostitution after the charge unmarked body of 20-year-old Siem Lee was found this week. A devastating story, it certainly is. Never nice to see the missing young girl body found. I mean, I'm not sure there's much to comment on a story like that, but you can read it. It is a very, very disturbing story. And then finally, we've got the Weekend Argus. Now, this is a story that we're going to discuss very much so during the program. It's Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille's D-Day as the DA Federal Executive meets to discuss her fate after months of accusations and counter-accusations over corruption allegations. So stay tuned. That will come up under discussion on the show quite fully. Well, as I said to you, it's social media time, one of my favorite topics, and I'm so glad we're talking about it because social media has become the newsmaker no matter what. Doesn't matter what we do, you've got to have social media open to be on top of things. So let's see what's been trending over this weekend, and thanks so much again, Shani, for talking to us. Shani, I'm talking to Piso rather. To Piso, this, of course, is the big one. I mean, this is still trending. It's number one. ANC 106, Cyril Ramaphosa, SABC News, hashtags. Let's go through the tweets, then we'll talk about them. Kaya Langa saying Cyril is going to be a really good president for the ANC. All right, that's Kaya's opinion. Let's carry on. Constantine saying it's been a long time since we've had leadership talk that is worth listening to. And then finally, here's another one. Slate politician saying, honestly, I'll only take Ramaphosa seriously if or when he removes Zuma unconditionally. So hashtag ANC 106. Right, let's talk about this. So it seemed like there was quite a overwhelming well done to Ramaphosa on his inaugural speech there.
Indeed, Lee, and yesterday we saw a very huge positive feedback from social media users to the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa. Some saying he's a breath of fresh air. Some saying they wish that he could remove President Jacob Zuma as soon as possible. But most of them, Leanne, were saying Cyril Ramaphosa, they have faith in him. They believe that he's the right person to take the organization forward, saying they wish that he can clean the ANC and get rid of those who are implicated in the corruption allegations. We know that there's a state capture. Some of the ministers have been mentioned to be party to those allegations. And generally, what we saw yesterday on social media, particularly on Twitter, was the overwhelming support for President Cyril Ramaphosa, and with people saying they wish that he can make that change that the ANC is in need for, and we hope that Ramaphosa will fulfill some of the promises that he made during his campaign trail. Some saying they will put him under pressure for him to deliver all those promises that he made, and it remains to be seen whether or if he will fulfill all those promises. It'll
be interesting to see, it really will, but Ramaphosa, I think, winning over some of the Twitter users yesterday. Here is a conversation I think that's worth having. Reaction to the H&M controversial ad. Social media backlash from a racist H&M advert forced the clothing retailer to apologize after a number of celebrities condemned their monkey hoodie advertorial. So yesterday, the EFF took to H&M stores around the country. This one from Miss Samantha TKO. I call my kids monkeys. If they were black, I'd probably still call them monkeys because they are cheeky monkeys. That's why. H&M, the weekend. All right. Sup Melon Mike saying the controversy with H&M and their ad is the consumer's fault for connecting monkey with a little boy. You guys are the ones who brought color into this. And then finally, Sa Tengbe saying EFF must accept that sometimes it makes mistakes, sometimes it miscalculates, sometimes it misunderstands, I beg your pardon. Vandalizing H&M was a big mistake, big miscalculation and big misunderstanding. Was it really? I'll ask my analysts about that one quickly. What do you think? Was it a bad calculation on the EFF's behalf? I mean, we saw a press release coming out from H&M this morning saying, again, we apologized. Our staff had nothing to do with it, and all stores in South Africa have been closed until further notice. So it has made ructions throughout the world. Was it a mistake or not? What do you think, Stephen?
You mean on H&M's part or the EFF's part?
I don't know. Let's take it from the EFF's part.
No, well, quite clearly H&M, it was a huge mistake.
That was a mistake. We don't need to discuss that.
Look, I think it is a miscalculation in the sense that I think that a lot of South Africans will be justifiably angry about the ad. But I think as soon as, you always got to win the moral high ground in a debate. And as soon as you move from a debate, this should be a debate about racism. The EFF has turned it into a debate about vandalizing stores, and I think that that is a mistake. There will be some people who will say, look, I feel so angry about racism that I think it's okay to vandalize stores. But my point is that we really should be talking about racism. We shouldn't be talking about a couple of people who go in and vandalize stores. And I think that they've actually shot themselves in the foot in the sense that it's changed the topic. And you know, it means that we're talking about what we shouldn't be talking about rather than what we should be talking about.
Or has it? Because the EFF are defending themselves, saying that we protest differently. We don't write petitions. We wrote petitions through the whole of apartheid. Nobody listened. It's time to take action.
Well,
racism must end.
The real proof of the pudding is not what the EFF thinks, but what the voters of South Africa think.
Yeah.
The evidence so far suggests that the voters of South Africa are not that impressed with this sort of behaviour, and that shows up in the EFF's performance.
Was Twitter impressed to be? So I mean, we saw that there were different arguments, some in favour and some against. I mean, I suppose it's difficult to do a tally, but what was it looking like?
Leanne, most of the tweets that we saw were against what the EFF has done, saying although H&M was wrong in projecting that young man in that hoodie, the EFF was wrong to vandalize and trash H&M store, saying they could have engaged with the store in a constructive manner so that there won't be what we saw yesterday, the trashing of the store, saying now that some of the stores will be closed today, and that means people who are working there, who are working shifts today, will not get a salary, will not get their money because of what the EFF has done, saying going for the EFF must refrain from that, must engage in constructive conversation with whoever is accused of taking part in racism activities.
Yeah, interesting. And 1,500 people employed by H&M here in South Africa. We don't want to see them losing their jobs. Let's take a look at the final trending topic this morning. The DA caucus recommends Delil be fired. Big meeting happening today. Delil's future is going to be determined. What do the people have to say? Mtaka Gold saying, poor Patricia Delil, shame. They chew you, then spit you out. One day Musi Maimane will get the same experience firsthand. It's inevitable. All right, Hombre Brian, Patricia Delil must join the EFF. Okay, Hombre, not the first time I've seen recommendations for another party for Patricia. And Eugene Boris Khalema saying Patricia Delil doesn't have a political home outside the DA. It's going to be tough. That is a conversation, and I keep saying we're going to be focusing on that one a lot. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you very much for talking to us here about social media and the trends. You can still get hold of us, write to us, let us know what you think about social media and some of the trends we're speaking about. We look at the media coverage of the new ANC leadership post-Nasrec conference here on Media Monitor. Do not go away.
In the belly of the beast, the vulnerable are easy targets in the streets. Marauding gangs terrorize communities mercilessly. With no respect for human life, animals are also not spared. The money business knows no boundaries. There is no respect for life. Helpless communities silenced by their pain. Can their last defense be in time to the rescue? Special assignment Saturday at 5:30 p.m. when we unravel the truth.
Africans are increasingly using digital platforms for life, work and play.
Information is key for us. We live in an information age. We live in the digital age.
I'm mostly on WhatsApp because not all my friends have iPhones, so they don't have FaceTime.
On Network, we tell you about Africa's technology and social media landscape. And some here are using the internet to raise political concerns.
Some of the exposés on political issues come from what we call your diasporic online media.
Africans are also using technology to create. For African technology and social media news, join Ms. Phumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 9 p.m.
This is Media Monitor. Welcome back. Thanks so much for staying with us so we get a review of the biggest stories of the week and, of course, what is happening over the weekend and this coming week. Well, this is going to be a very big story today and certainly going to be stealing all of the attention of South Africans. The DA's federal executive is expected this afternoon to consider submissions by Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille on why she should not resign. This follows allegations of corruption levelled against her and other top city officials. So to tell us more about the story, we've got our analyst in studio that'll join in the conversation. But in our C Point studio, we've got Nomawethu Solwandle, and she, of course, has been covering the story extensively for us. Nomawethu, thank you so much for being with us. I mean, this is certainly one of the biggest stories that we see going on in the DA. I mean, what have you made of it from the beginning?
Well, Leanne, let's start where the story started. The story broke out late last year when there was a public spat between a MACO member, JP Smith, and Mayor Patricia de Lille. Now, this was very unusual within the DA because the DA, maybe if they do have problems, they fix everything behind closed doors. It never actually leaks to the media. So that, first of all, was very interesting. Now, there were allegations between the two, and it really got personal because what JP Smith was saying was that Mayor Patricia de Lille wanted to shut down the special investigative unit within the city of Cape Town because of her own agendas. And what Patricia de Lille was saying was that JP Smith was actually running this like cowboy school, like he wanted to use the SIU to overstep his mark and how he deals with issues within the city of Cape Town. So this got really, really, really ugly. And I think DA leader Mmusi Maimane actually had to step in to ensure that the DA itself does not look bad. We know that he actually put JP Smith as well as Patricia on special leave, and then they were barred from speaking to the media. But then there was information of the upgrades to Patricia de Lille's home that was leaked to the media. And then straight after this, the highest official in Patricia de Lille's office actually also had an affidavit which had a lot of damning evidence or allegations towards Patricia de Lille that was leaked to the media. So there's definitely a crisis within the City of Cape Town caucus, DA caucus, and now the media has had first experience, or because all this information was actually leaked or they were aware of it. So there's definitely a crisis there, Leanne.
Yeah. All right, Shani, I mean, when we look at what's happening within the ranks of the DA, it certainly seems that the story, well, it has been leaked. I mean, that we do know. And there could be factional battles at play within the DA and the media. I mean, the media is always used as the game and the key to play this game and who can play it better. What's gone wrong in the DA? What's happening with de Lille?
I don't think there's necessarily anything going wrong with the DA. I think, you know, obviously things that happen in a governing party, they're only just beginning to experience it more fully. But just coming specifically into the issue of what's happening with de Lille, I've noticed that the media and also in social media, people were saying actually de Lille was used and now she's being tossed aside and my money's going to be tossed. These people are not children, you know. She knew exactly what she was getting herself into. Yes, there's an element of factionalism. In fact, some of the newspapers, one of the newspapers I read, reported the fact that actually she was being accused of only promoting people who come from her old party. And this is one of the things that is fueling factionalism. But, you know, it's the political game, and you know, if you're DA and you're running on the ticket of clean governance, surely when there's any suggestion of improper behavior, you should act. And I think that's what they're doing. Until obviously we get evidence to the contrary, I actually think this is what they should be doing. Actually, what is the evidence? I mean, Stephen, are we aware of what are the allegations, the proper allegations about her, and have we seen any proof?
No, obviously we would not have seen proof because they're simply allegations. They haven't been investigated. Yeah, you know, the allegations have reported, you know, there are claims, and she has been in the public domain,
very vocal,
vocally saying. I mean, one of the issues is claims that she improperly upgraded her house. She claims that She's been on the radio saying she didn't do that, everything was done by the book. She hasn't got anything there that was not allowed by the rules. There's also a claim that she tried to block an investigation into a senior official. So the claims are really that she was using public office for her own advantage, and that she was covering up things that should not have been covered up. All this obviously has to be investigated, but clearly the fact that there are factional battles in the DA is very clear. This has been obvious for some time, and this is an indication of it. I mean, incidentally, it seems pretty obvious that she's going to go, because the DA caucus in Cape Town has come out against her. Now I don't see how she can carry on as mayor if her own caucus has said that they don't want her there.
Which is going to have a very adverse effect on the DA.
What I find interesting about this is the reaction, etc., is it's pretty much, I mean, the speculation is that when she goes, and it does seem like when, that the next mayor of Cape Town will be a black person.
Yes.
And I find it interesting that in that context, all the speculation is, look, the DA treats black people this way, they'll throw her, they've thrown her out, they'll throw my money, etc. Of course, the DA's response will be, well, if we're a bunch of racists, why are we replacing her with the first black mayor of Cape Town? Well, the first DA black mayor of Cape Town. I forget who was obviously mayor. So I don't think, I think race is an issue in the DA, but I'm not convinced that the pressure on Patricia de Lille has anything to do with race. I think it has other factors.
It's been suspicious, though. We haven't heard a single word, not a single word from the DA leader, Mmusi Maimane, we're basically the biggest place that they run, that they govern, is basically in this internal faction, and yet the leader of the DA is not saying anything.
And you see, this is a tremendous problem for him, because given the background we're talking about, whether it's justified or not, the suggestion is that he's a puppet. That's what the ANC says, what the EFF says. Now, if you're in a situation where the suggestion is that de Lille is being pushed out because the hierarchy in the Western Cape, led by Helen Zille, want her out, if you're the leader of the party and you say nothing about it, you're simply fueling the suggestion that you're the person who doesn't make decisions. I'm not saying that is the case, but unless he actually gets involved in it in a much more direct way, he's allowing people to say that.
Yeah. Let me just go back to Nomowetu. We know when the ANC does something, when Jacob Zuma, our president, does something, the media jumps onto that like a little lapdog and growls and doesn't let it go and reports on it feverishly. Are we doing the same? I mean, the DA is in this battle. Is it getting enough media attention, do you believe?
Well, and first of all, I like that comparison that you made. When something happens within the ANC, we all know about it and we all jump for it. But the difference between the ANC and the DA, like I said, is that the DA it's all about this clean governance. They do everything by the book. They don't have public spats. But within the ANC, we do see a lot of public spats, which is the difference here in this case. It was very difficult, Leanne, to actually cover this story in the initial stages, because you remember that after leader Mmusi Maimane had a meeting with both JP Smith and Mayor Patricia de Lille, he actually put both of them on special leave and they were barred from speaking to the media. So the only information that the media then had was the media statement or two from the DA in terms of what is happening and how they're moving forward. But then, Leanne, you started to see other media houses covering the stories, and that was obviously through leaks. They were given information on the side to run the story, and that speaks to the factions that we see within the DA, where people have their own personal agendas to actually fulfill in terms of how everything plays out. And I mean, we all know that the media somehow will be used for this sort of purpose, but I don't think that there are factions within the media per se. I think if someone came to me and said, I've got this information and here's a story for you, obviously you want to have exclusive information as a journalist, you run the story. Obviously looking into the details of the story and how best you can run it. So it's been leak after leak, exclusive after exclusive. But this is normal in the media space, Leanne, because we all know any company, any political figure, or any party will always have that sort of favorite media house that they'll always go to, that will always run their story. We've seen this with Mayor Patricia de Lille. It's probably her strategic communication plan when she said the Auditor General had actually vindicated her of all wrongdoing in terms of of the allegations that she used taxpayers' money for renovations to her home. She actually invited the Argus to her home for that story, and the Argus was the only media house that actually had that story. So the different factions in the DA are using the media somehow through leaks to benefit themselves or their own agendas. Yeah.
Well, there we go. It's going to be an interesting day. It certainly is. We should find out today, shouldn't we? Would we get the judgment? I mean, the discussion meetings.
Yes. I think before we move off the topic, the comment you've made and Nomaweti's made about selective media coverage, I think is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
The DA is getting a free ride in the places where it's governed. If you look at Joburg, where we're sitting at the moment, I don't think there's any indication that the quality of services has improved. There are allegations of corruption which have been reported in some of the media, and it all gets ignored by the rest of the media because the DA is being held to a different standard to the ANC, and maybe this is something else which will change now that the leadership of the ANC has changed.
And the dynamics certainly seem to be changing. This weekend has seen that happen between the DA, the EFF, and suddenly the ANC is coming out tops in terms of that image that it's represented to the public, and that I think is something we need to take heed of. Nomawetu, thank you. Good luck for today. No doubt going to be a very busy day for you, and we'll watch your reports closely. Thank you so much for chatting to us this morning. Right, so let us now take a break. When we return, President Jacob Zuma emerged unscathed from the ANC NEC's first special sitting in East London. All of that after the break.
Dose of art and entertainment news. Tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
Africans are increasingly using digital platforms for life, work and play.
Information is key for us. We live in an information age. We live in the digital age.
I'm mostly on WhatsApp because not all my friends have iPhones, so they don't have FaceTime.
On Network, we tell you about Africa's technology and social media landscape. And some here are using the internet to raise political concerns.
Some of the exposés on political issues come from what you call your diasporic online media.
Africans are also using technology to create. For African technology and social media news, join me, Phumelele Zondi, on Network every Sunday at 9 p.m.
Welcome back to Media Monitor. Thanks very much for tuning in on this Sunday morning. President Jacob Zuma emerged unscathed from the ANC NEC's first special sitting in East London on Thursday. Now that despite the media hype that he could be recalled. The meeting took place just before the party's 106th birthday celebrations held in that province yesterday. According to party leaders, discussions around Zuma's future were not even on the agenda. Let's now look at how the ANC, as well as its president, have been doing under the media spotlight since. We cross over to our reporter, Kgositsile Gemsama. She is in Eastern Cape, been covering the story for us, and she's going to give us her views on the coverage of the ANC and its president, Cyril Ramaphosa, post-Nasrec to date. Kgositsile, good morning to you. It's great to have you on the show.
Morning to you too, Lee, and thank you for having me. Well, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa has been enjoying the media coverage. In fact, he's been the darling of the media. If you look during his campaign, post the national conference, up until now, he has been enjoying the media coverage, from the media covering him taking a jog around East London to him playing golf. Even after the national conference, in fact, if you look closely, Leon, you notice that even the scandals that emerged of the cell phone testing and allegations of him not being faithful to his wife, not that much has been made a hype around him. It died down and no one goes back to it. They're focusing on him being the new president of the ANC now. Terms that are aligned with him are economic transformation, radical economic transformation, unity. He's seen as someone who will unify the ANC, as someone who will improve the state of economy in the country, as someone who will bring back investor confidence in the country. So he's been enjoying a lot of positive publicity from the media across all media houses. Except, of course, for that one TV station that has been not so positive on him, giving the positive airtime to State President Jacob Zuma.
Okay, we won't go into that one. We'll just leave it at that statement. Now, listen, even I had to giggle a little bit with everything that was going on last week. It seemed that the media were more fascinated in ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa going for a jog on the promenade with his stripy McDonald's socks that made the front page of a newspaper, and that seemed to be the discussion point. Nobody can find the negative. The media seem to be eating out of the palm of Cyril Ramaphosa's hands. I mean, is this the impression that you're getting as well?
Indeedly, and it's the impression that I've been getting, that the media, he's a darling. The media, everything he does, it's something that is admirable in the eyes of the media. It's something that is positive, because when you look at it, given the opportunity, if it was President Zuma who was doing the job, wearing those socks, it would have been a taboo. There would have been negative comments on it. There would have been, he's taking a jog whilst the rest of the country is unemployed, whilst the rest of the country is facing an economy that is not in a positive light. So they have been eating out of his pond. Really, he has been enjoying publicity from the media. They've been following him. And other than that, though, it would be difficult to say the media would not give him the positive coverage that they've been giving him. Because if you look at him, his campaign has been a clean campaign. Not many scandals have come out. There hasn't been anything that you say is tangible that the media would focus on that would be negative in terms of covering him. He has been someone who has been clean throughout the campaign. The national conference, the anniversary celebrations of the ANC, and the fact that the ANC managed to deliver a conference that was successful, and also deliver the 106 celebrations that was successful, also counted in his favor, because there were no scandals that were reported. Everything went smoothly, so it's more positive publicity on his side. Yeah, certainly. I mean, Kgositsile, I think what you're saying is so right. I mean, if poor President Jacob Zuma was pictured wearing socks on the front page of the newspaper, the weird headline would be, "Did the Guptas present these gifts to President Jacob Zuma?" I mean, that's the reality. You know, we see the influence of the media, Shani. I mean, we can never dispute that. The media can make or break you. I mean, is the media making Ramaphosa?
Well, I think there's definitely an air of optimism around him. and he comes because of his background, you know, what he did in terms of the creation of our constitution, and also his achievements in the private sector. And people are hoping that he'll be able to continue with that. But I think a warning to Cyril, you know, as you said, they can make or break you. Yeah. Action will determine whether they continue to make him or they break him. As I said earlier, there are things that he could do immediately to continue on this journey that he's on, and this you know, romance that he has with the media. And that's the deal decisively with the issue of the NPA head, deal with the issue of state capture, management, or rather lapses of governance in SOEs, among many other things. The Jacob Zuma issue, of course, that will be a big win, but I suspect he will be very calculating before he actually attempts to get rid of Zuma. But he needs to actually continue on that optimism because the markets are responding well, as you've noticed. I mean, the rand has gained considerably since actually he was elected president of the ANC. And you know, things can only get better. He's made an invitation to investors during his speech that, you know what, we're going to deal with issues of delivery. You know, we're welcoming you back. You know, stop standing on the fence line and actually come back and participate in the economy. So he's actually going to give the opposition a run for their money, I think, in terms of how they are both reported in the media.
Yeah, I mean, certainly standing up there at the podium, and the first opening address that he basically said yesterday was, we said this would begin at 11 o'clock. It is starting at 11:01, and this is the way the ANC is going to do business in the future. This is already setting a new path. The time is of the essence. We respect our people, we respect the media, we respect our followers and our voters, supporters. I mean, this is something that we haven't necessarily seen from the ANC in a while, and the media laps this up. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, people love punctuality and to be respected.
Yeah, my son says he doesn't think the country can survive an ANC which starts meetings on time, but this year
I have to rearrange our schedules.
I think this is very interesting, Leanne, and I think it's very interesting in the sense that there's been a lot of academic research done around this around the world. The media, for all this talk about speaking truth to power, etc., the media love people in authority. The media love authority figures, etc. And we've had a very unusual situation here in the sense that the main authority figure has just been somebody, for reasons we know very well, that the media has been very angry about and very. But I think we're going to see a change in that. I mean, even the unnamed news channel that your reporter's talking about, they're not rejecting authority figures, they're just attaching themselves to another authority figure in the same form of Jacob Zuma, etc. So I think you're going to see a correction in the sense that you're going to see the kind of very flattering media coverage of authority figures which we very often see around the world. Where I disagree with you is I don't think that the media do necessarily make or break you. I mean, the evidence, get back to something we said earlier, in the run-up to the 2016 local elections, the EFF got incredibly favourable media coverage. It was in the media all the time. At a time when people were angry with the ANC, it could only push itself up from 6 3/4 up to 8. So, in other words, that means that Cyril Ramaphosa is getting a lot of sympathetic coverage from the media. Cyril Ramaphosa's challenge over the next 18 months is not the media. Cyril Ramaphosa's challenge is the people who vote in 2019. My sense is that, you know, and you're just picking up feelings, we haven't seen any surveys or whatever. My sense is that most voters, certainly in the cities, are pleased that he's been elected. They want to give him a chance, but obviously if he doesn't act in a way which shows them that he's taking their concerns seriously, then it doesn't matter how much favourable media coverage he gets, then he's going to have a battle in 2019.
All right, I want to bring you into this as well, because we've got to wrap up this conversation, but we can't ignore the fact that President Jacob Zuma was booed yesterday in full glare of television cameras when he arrived. You know, the media and the public have become quite used to the fact that President Jacob Zuma always gets into these situations in these public platforms. Is this something that the media was expecting? In fact, is this something that the media wanted? I mean, it looks good on television. It's great for publicity, isn't it?
Well, Leanne, indeed, the media has gotten so used to President Zuma making these mistakes or receiving such treatment. I think it was something that they expected, and it's something that they were saying let's wait and see. Let's see how they receive President Zuma, especially now that there are talks of unity. Remember, there has been calls that he should step down, and the media has been covering all those voices before the National Executive Committee meeting that was saying he should be recalled, Cyril Ramaphosa should be recalled. And your guest just said if he doesn't act, then he will find himself in big trouble with the media or the people that want to give him a chance. And we've seen that all those calls saying he should step down, the NEC meeting will resolve on that. But they did not. They did not resolve on that. And it's something that says, I am here and I will not be sidetracked by the media or the voices outside. The ANC should be allowed to do its job and will act when it is time to act, and will look at the time that is right for them to act and take certain decisions. With President Zuma being booed there, yes indeed, the media, it's something that it was recorded on national television, but I think the events that followed, because it was just a few minutes of it and everything went smoothly. So the event that took place here in East London yesterday far outweighed the booing of President Jacob Zuma yesterday, and all the attention was given to the speech of the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa. He was talking about the economy, unity, crime, and how to create jobs in an economy that is not so favorable.
All right, Kgositsile, thank you very, very much for joining us on the line. Keep up the great work there in East London and covering all the after reaction from that 106 meeting and gathering. And I can say that I think a success thereof. But one thing that wasn't a success were those banners that were doing the rounds on social media. I don't know if you saw them, where there was one that said the 3rd president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa. You didn't see it?
No.
I'll WhatsApp it to you, okay? I'll form a group and I'll WhatsApp some of those banners. I think they need a new media monitor there at the ANC's advertising campaign. All right, Shani, thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your Sunday. It's been a pleasure chatting to you here on the program. Let us take a break. We'll have a lot more after this. Stay tuned.
I feel it's a real person.
And it's nutritious and delicious.
It's good. I really like it.
This celebrates being South African. We love our beer, we love our food, we love our music.
For knowing who are going, you must know where you come from.
To be part of this year.
For all your travel trends, catch us every Sunday, 12 midday on Channel 404.
We cross live, give updates and cover sport.
The observer missions, what are they saying?
It will be a very difficult announcement to make, to say whether these elections have been free and fair.
1 in every 100 people are diagnosed with arthritis daily. In an effort to raise awareness, a handful of elderly women, they took to the streets of Soweto to stretch their fight against the ailment.
Western Province upset the Sharks by 33 points to 21 to be crowned the 2017 Currie Cup champions at the Kings Park Stadium.
In Durban.
On time with weather every hour, all the time. For all news, stay tuned to AM News every Saturday and Sunday at 10:00 hours Central African Time.
Welcome back. We're heading up to 10 minutes before 10 and almost time to close the show, but we can't close today's show without taking a look at the passing of renowned veteran, activist, teacher, national poet laureate, Professor William Keorapetse Kgositsile, popularly known as Bra Willie, who died recently after a short illness. Kgositsile was an internationalist of note, and reports of his death reverberated across the globe. In the 79 years of his life, Kgositsile touched the lives of many locally and internationally through his poetry and political activism. But has his contribution been appreciated, especially in his own country? That's a question we are going to be posing to our guest here this morning, Roshni Munsami, who of course has worked with Bra Willie for many, many years as an arts festival producer and also working internationally with him. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program. I mean, before we even delve into the appreciation of Bra Willie, I mean, for you, it must have come as a very sad shock to you as well.
Very, very sad. You know, we all know that death will happen, but Bra Willie was one of these people that you just expected to always have in your life.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very sad moment.
Yeah.
But we have fantastic memories and so much good that Bra Willie has done over the decades for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, this is another blow to the arts industry, because there's just been so many blows. We've lost so many incredible artists here in South Africa that have contributed so much, not only to the arts, but to the liberation of South Africa. And we can never, ever forget that artists have made South Africa into what it is. Do we see the media involved in building this sector, though?
I do see the media involved. Of course, more needs to be done. The media has its own constraints, its budgetary constraints and so on. But definitely more can be done in promoting the arts. And there is a lot being done. In terms of Professor Kgositsile, I must say, you know, in terms of government, they've done a lot to acknowledge his contribution formally. He has worked on various levels of government, from local government, national, provincial. But in terms of his contribution, I think, and the media, more can be done in terms of schools, the universities, colleges, and also just for public discourse, you know, public literature festivals, you name it, popular events beyond academia.
Yeah, and that's the reality, is that we as the media need to keep his legacy alive.
Definitely.
Because if not, it'll be forgotten. And the reality is that by keeping the legacy alive, you inspire the youth. So the media's role in keeping that legacy alive?
I think the media definitely, and also organization working together with the media, promoting literature, promoting the arts. We find that in terms of print media, even digital media, not enough time and money spent on promoting the arts, and it's an important aspect of our lives. So the media can be doing a lot more, and maybe less budgetary cuts for the arts in the media.
It's always the first to go. It's the reality. It's just that, you know, you focus on the media when times are good. However, when the budgets are cut, that's the one of the first things to go.
And it's really one of the most important aspects of life for people.
Yeah, it certainly is. Let's talk about the many accolades that Bra Willie achieved. You speak about working with him in the US, and he's internationally renowned and celebrated. However, do you feel that he was celebrated enough here in South Africa when he was alive? I mean, he's being hailed now that he has passed, but while he was alive?
I do think he was celebrated while he was alive, but maybe more could have been done. Certainly government has done their bit officially and in his work, but I think in terms of celebrating him and in terms of his legacy, I think one would see more of his work being discussed and learned in schools, in universities. That would have been much better, but we need to improve on that. So a lot, and young poets loved him. You know, but we also live in like Gauteng, where everything is happening, and he was a very, very important part of the youth, of the poetry movement for young people. He would, you know, and he was a strange man in some ways, and he was very special because you would never know his age. He could be young, he could be old. Somebody at his memorial described him as an alchemist, magic man. So he, you know, in terms of his personality and his work, both were central to him connecting with people and young poets. He was very, very influential for young poets. But to take his work forward, I do think we need to promote him in the schools. But Professor Kgositsile, as he's looking down on us, would also look at the people who have shaped his work, his contemporaries, the late Jane Cortez, Langston Hughes, Amira Baraka, all those kind of people, they're also important, and important in terms of literature, artists from the continent, artists from the African diaspora. He was a universalist, and looking at all those important contributions together with his work that should be taught, and relevant work that it is for universities, colleges and schools.
Indeed. I mean, you talk locally, I talk about America. I know that there was a memorial service in New York, and some of the young people were talking about how great he was with young people and how vast his influence on aspiring poets was. So he has touched most corners of this earth, and we thank him for the work that he's done, and we thank you for your time in coming in, and also those moments spent with him will be priceless for you. Roshni Winsami, thank you for being our guest on Media Monitor.
Thank you.
Well, that's it. Thank you for being with us here on Media Monitor. I have enjoyed this thoroughly. It's been great for me to stand in here. But Sakina Kamwenda will be back with you next week for the next edition of Media Monitor. But Peter Ndoro will be conducting an interview with ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa at 10:30 right here on Channel 404. You don't want to miss that. Thanks again for watching. Have a beautiful Sunday, and God bless you all. Bye-bye.